Yeah, I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just catapulting towards some greater purpose?
Average fat cats with bloated ego. We are the only DJ crazy enough to tattoo Jackie Brown on his ass.
This is Michael Mann, and I ride with
Extended Clip.
Welcome to Extended Clip. It is episode 237, and I'm one of your hosts, Eddie Averill.
I'm Malcolm Baum.
I'm JT White.
And today, our topic is Bonjour, Tristesse. Now, you might hear that title and think, is this a French movie? No. This is directed by Monsieur Hollywood himself, Otto Preminger. And I say it like that because he's one of the auteurs that the French really liked back in the 50s and 60s, and that a lot of American critics really liked, and has somewhat fallen out of favor. I mean, when I say fallen out of favor, people aren't walking around calling him a hack, you know? Yeah. But when you're logging on to your film website of choice and people are yucking it up about classic Hollywood, they're dropping their top fives. They're doing One's Gotta Go, you know, with Ford, Hawks, Wells, and Hitchcock. It's like, you know, Preminger's not really in those conversations anymore. Like, I feel like just from reading older film books, I feel like he used to be in that conversation more during Sarris's era, for example.
Yeah, no, especially working through the Romer book that I have, they definitely talk about, like, during the Cahiers du Cinema parts, like, he's one of the boys they're really heaping on love for. And I mean, obviously, I think with time, it's natural that some guys, I feel like it even feels a little silly to say, like, left by the wayside, because things like Anatomy of a Murder, I feel like still are... it's hard to judge like critical consensus, especially like within our own like little niche circle. But it does definitely feel like fallen by the wayside to some extent.
I would say the B pictures, the more genre stuff, has definitely fallen by the wayside, and the deep auteurist readings. Whereas, yeah, his bigger social issue dramas from the late 50s into the 60s have been canonized, and, you know, maybe rightfully so, maybe not. But I feel like him as a studio guy who came from the world of theater and Europe and came to Hollywood and, you know, failed at first, went back to theater, then came back to Hollywood and gave it another shot, and was really grinding in the trenches of, you know, the assembly line, the factory line studio system of the late 30s, early 40s. And so for him to slowly develop this really unique artistic voice, and we see it in, you know, its full form here by 1958 with Bonjour, Tristesse. I just think he's like such a great case study for individualism within the factory line system. Malcolm, are you a Preminger head? Is your name Otto, and do you like to get blotto?
I remember seeing that from The Simpsons as a young kid, blotto. I don't even know what that means, but I like the wordplay. So yeah, I do like to get blotto. I am with Otto. I mean, yeah, Otto Preminger. Yeah, like you guys were saying, maybe not everyone's first choice when it comes to classic Hollywood, but he's someone I've always been fascinated by. And yeah, a lot of the French critics liked him, and you know, maybe he was held to higher esteem. And I think one other aspect, I don't know, I think he was a little bit more you know, daring than, you know, maybe people would give him credit for, in a lot of stuff that I haven't even seen yet. But something like this movie, I don't know, it feels a little bit ahead of its time, a little bit you know, ahead of you know, the terms of thinking that were in the classic Hollywood era. And I just remember watching this movie, and I don't know, I was just kind of impressed, you know, by those things, and that's why I wanted to bring it to the podcast. And, you know, it's funny, I was I was reading Bosley Crowther. Is that how you say it? Bosley?
I always do like a spoonerism on accident. I always call him like Bowser Crosley or something like that, because I never get it right on the first try. So I'm hoping that you are right.
Bosley Crowder. I was thinking of like the anti-balding.
Yeah, dude, Bosley Crowder's played on like every NBA team. It's crazy.
So yeah, whatever. I forgot what his actual name is, but yeah, Bosley Crowther or whatever his name. He was just like, I just was looking up reviews out of curiosity, but I ended up only reading this one just because I thought it was funny. And he was just like, this is like a movie about like just a young, vapid girl, you know, and this is an adult movie, and we don't even know why, you know, her dad cheats or whatever. So it's like, he was like, this is like a thin, superficial movie. And I think this movie is just ahead of its time, just because it is about, I guess, superficial people and whatnot, and kind of, I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see that, you know, one of the top critics of the day, you know, couldn't handle that, couldn't handle the, you know, I guess he wanted some relatability, you know, but I don't know. That's why I find this movie interesting. I think it's probing something that's very specific and kind of, I don't know, you know, like whether you want to, like, what do you call it, excuse a character's poor behavior seems so beside the point to me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I want to keep talking about Preminger at large a little bit before we get into Bonjour, Tristesse in particular, just because we've never really talked about him on the podcast. And yeah, I think that he's such a psychologically probing director that's the one thing that really changes over time with his approach from just seeing, you know, a baker's dozen of his movies or less. Is a baker's dozen more than a dozen?
Yes, it's 13.
Okay, never mind. Bakers are very generous.
After
seeing,
half?
yeah, after
half dozen.
Well, I've seen more than that. After seeing a shiesty baker's dozen. No,
half
don't
dozen.
say what kind of baker about them. After seeing a fair share of Preminger movies, it seems like, you know, that was there at the start. It's there in the 40s, you know, dramas. You see something like Daisy Kenyon, and it's like, oh my God, this is so far beyond its contemporaries in terms of character psychology and the way that interiority is formed through both performance and direction. And then by the time he gets to Bonjour, Tristesse, he's doing European realism and modernism in a a part Hollywood, part UK setting, because the production was American and British, I guess. But yeah, essentially, you could call it a Hollywood movie, you know, because he's a Hollywood director making a big movie in the late 50s. He's bringing a very European style to American audiences that were absolutely not ready for it, but it's also so clearly an extension of work like Daisy Kenyon or Angel Face, which utilizes a car wreck in a melodramatic way toward the end in a very different way, but evokes a similar feeling. And, you know, I feel like it's so crazy that he was able to translate what he was doing through more for hire work with like the noirs and dramas into this super, you know, ahead of its time, super artsy movie. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, no, in general with me, I think that's always what I'm blown away, both in terms of like style and content. There's this like progressive like edge to it that's like not like progressive and like you've described like things like Anatomy of a Murder and some of his later work is like social issue movies. But I feel like, especially for the time as well, there's like a kind of provocative, like he still is keeping that like sort of B movie flavor like a little bit, where both like the style of the films he's making is kind of large and I don't know, he just takes a lot of like swings that are I feel like unprecedented for filmmakers at the time. And then also just things like Anatomy of a Murder, like Jimmy Stewart's dad very famously like wrote a letter to his like local newspaper in Indiana, Pennsylvania, saying, "Do not see the obscene movie that my son is in." His son being like probably at least like 40-year-old man, at this point,
and one of the biggest movie stars.
Yeah,
I mean, he's much older than 40 at that point, right?
Yeah. But like, just talking about your grown adult son in this, because it's the first like Hollywood movies to like say rape and panties. I think there's very much so, and I mean, especially like another like social issue one, Man with the Golden Arm, like that's still like really provocative too. Like that's addressing like a subject matter, and I mean this like as well. Like the weird Freudian like layers to it is something that like I feel like if you're of the time and digesting like just regular like flow of media, this is, I don't know, Preminger's work is really
It's very disruptive.
yeah, disruptive.
So let's talk about Bonjour, Tristesse here. You start out with the Saul Bass opening titles that kind of define the, I guess, mature period of Preminger's work. I guess most of his films from the mid to late 50s onward, he worked with old Saul Bass on the visual design of the opening titles. And so we start in black and white in the present day, as it were, where our lead character, played by Jean Seberg, who is billed third in this movie. I think that's another reason people didn't really like it, is because we're still in star-studded Hollywood. David Nevin, second build, and first build is the woman who plays Anne, Deborah Kerr, I believe. And so the fact that this movie centers around this like teenage girl who's not famous for being in movies yet. She did 2 movies with Preminger, this and Saint Joan, the Joan of Arc one. I feel like that probably turned people off as well, because her acting style is not like that of the Hollywood system. There's a reason why Godard cast her in Breathless, essentially as a continuation of this movie. That's what he said. He said, this movie could end and you get to dissolve to 3 years later and Breathless would start. That's how Godard describes the relationship between Bonjour, Tristesse and Breathless, which
I didn't know that.
fantastic
That's so
relationship.
tight.
Yeah.
That's very funny.
So we see her in what feels already immediately like such a European movie where, she's like dropping her painter boyfriend just because like she thinks he's boring, basically. And then she goes home and talks to her dad, David Nevin, about how he just dropped his recent girlfriend because she's boring. And it kind of introduces this really strange dynamic where this father and daughter are like buddies while helping each other date. And obviously she's 17 and kissing him on the mouth all the time.
She's calling daddy by his first name.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. I like rolling up Raymond.
Yeah.
No, that's your father.
Better show him some goddamn respect, and you cannot leave the house dressed like that. I'm sorry. Get back in the house.
You call him father or Mr. Tristesse?
No daughter of mine will leave the house looking like that. I just love pretending to be an angry father. I don't know. I could do it for a while. But
Yeah, I would say you got the bones for it.
the bones for it. Interesting. Yeah, I love this kind of weird family dynamic at the core of this movie, because it feels like a lot of the great like Hollywood movies think of like Nicholas Ray and his movies, and like kind of like about how the burden of like traditional family living is slowly eroding people's souls or whatnot, and causing them to turn to various things, where this one is kind of I don't know, it focuses on a strange family dynamic, one that's probably not so common. I'm sure it exists, but this is not your typical family. And just to kind of, I don't know, to examine the intricacies of a weird family relationship is kind of underrated, because I feel like the way family is depicted, it's often about this expectation, like, oh, I got to be a good son, or like, I'm a father, I have to provide, kind of stuff we've heard over and over again, and just kind of having this weird, almost incestual kind of agreed debauchery that this father-daughter combo, engages in, is very fascinating.
Well, I like you bringing up Ray, because I feel like that's a perfect analog for a lot of the. It feels hard at points to call the father-daughter relationship here like subtext, like Freudian, because it's so like in your face. But I don't know, great like Hollywood filmmakers like Ray were able to bring like homoeroticism to like the forefront, and this is very much so feels similar to that, where it's this weird like psychosexual angle that I feel like definitely is derived, like the source material is like a French novel when the novelist was like 18 when he wrote it. Like, I'm sure it's a lot more like explicit and like into the psychology of the character there, but I feel like there's that, like, I don't know, you get the fun of the weird clash of the kind of like repressed American sensibility, sort of. I mean, obviously American, like UK co-production, but still you're getting that kind of angle to that is very much so like avoiding like that, but bringing it to the forefront. That I love that like contradiction there.
Mm-hmm. So she's asked out at this ball when we're here in the first act in black and white in the present day, and she starts going off on this great monologue and voiceover about kind of the uselessness and cyclical nature of dating.
And after the races, he'll take me to dinner and dancing again. And on Thursday to the tennis matches. And on Sunday to the country. What a waste of time, dear Jacques. What a hopeless waste of time.
She said he's going to ask me out to tennis and then to the horse races and then to dinner and to dancing and then eventually to spend the night. What's the use, And she still goes through with it because that's just what you do in life, I guess. But she talks about this idea of a wall of memories, and that's what triggers the flashback through these great optical effects into the meat of the story. The flashback taking place in beautiful Technicolor on the French Riviera. And you open and you got the father and daughter in like matching outfits, doing all this like really way too cute repartee between each other, like the weird relationship with the revolving door of maids, and like Nevin pinches the butt of the maid and realizes it's her sister because of how the butt that he's pinching feels, and it's very evocative right from the start. It's like, this is going to be a movie that is about an older man exploring his own like late in life sexual immaturity, and trying to make good of it while his daughter is coming of age right in front of him and being way too physical with him, and of course both of the women that he goes for are like just basically look like they could be his daughter in 15 years and his daughter in 35 years. And I feel like it's playing into something that a lot of 50s movies were. It's funny because psychoanalysis and cinema were invented basically at the same time, and basically around the same place in time. And then it takes until the 50s for cinema to really like get into its psychoanalytic roots, I think, with the 50s melodrama with Douglas Sirk, with Nicholas Ray, and especially with Hitchcock in the 50s into the 60s. And I think this one is just leaning into that so much in such an interesting way. The part toward the end where Jean Seberg has a T-chart and she's like logging comparative data about her traits versus Anne's traits, because she knows that her father will be replacing her with this older woman. It is just like one of the most insane things ever, but it's like these ideas hadn't been expressed in clear-cut terms really ever in cinema. So it's like they're always going to be weird and vague because people don't want to make movies that are downright about psychology until a little after this. It just breaks wide open because people couldn't take the subtext anymore.
And what's interesting about all this, all the deep, Freud-style stuff and whatnot, is that we never really, it's deeply seeped in the Jean Seberg's character's perspective, you know what I mean? Like, kind of like David Niven trying to clean up his act a little bit and, date a woman his age, try to marry a woman his age. It's all, we don't really get the psychological pangs that he goes through trying to make that decision, or even know if he's really ever conscious of it like that, you know what I mean? And I feel like this movie benefits from, just it being strictly from the Jean Seberg's character's perspective, because I don't know, I think it gives what happens later in the movie, it gives it kind of that sense of tragedy because, we're looking through the world through kind of like, these youthful, ignorant eyes. She's still, young enough to not realize the error of her ways until she does.
Yeah, no, I like that sort of remove there from the Niven's like perspective. It definitely like, yeah, you do get this weird. I mean, not entirely like outsider angle, because obviously she becomes like just a thorn in the middle of this relationship. But like, like obviously it's not going to work out, because Niven is like can't even remember inviting the character Anne.
Yeah.
He's like he's like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like he was like drunk at a party when he was like, you should come on vacation with us. And it's just like, that's such a like a flag right from the beginning. That's like, oh yeah, I'm sure this is gonna fucking work out. But it's really fun to see the relationship evolve through Seberg's character, especially because it's just like you see how like flipping a switch, like she changes, like where she's like super excited that like Anne is there at like first is just like a presence in the house, but then when it becomes like, oh well, she is like competition for my father, who's not like just sort of dumb, like vapid, like me, and the other woman present in that relationship. It, like, I don't know, shifts the dynamic, makes her have that like realization, like self-realization that she desperately wants to avoid. And I don't know, it's just fun and fascinating to get that.
Yeah, I mean, Anne showing up at the vacation house about 20 minutes in changes, the whole dynamic of the movie, despite it only being her and Jean Seberg's character in that scene. It feels like every character has changed because it's such a massive dramatic shift where, you get the excitement, then you get the embarrassment on behalf of Jean Seberg's father, of her having to tell her, well, yeah, Elsa's here, but like, it's fine. Like, he's sleeping back in the backyard. Like, there's no funny business going on, and she goes rage mode because of it. And then, that just like starts the relationship of weirdly threatening, like the weirdly threatening relationship that Anne has toward the Jean Seberg character. From there, like, she's seen her in full rage mode. She knows her potential. If she gets angry and gets on the wrong side of her, she knows what gets her angry. And it's like the fear of her father getting taken away, and just the fear of, losing him to this woman who can clearly like out brute strength her,
And I think it's interesting as well because it's like the Anne character like comes in, and I feel like a more traditional sort of film would paint that as like, oh, trying to institute this like level of conventional family here. It would be like sort of a positive thing, especially where it's like, obviously I think we're getting like a very harsh angle into the Seberg Niven lifestyle that they're leading. That's clearly like weird and fucked up. But like Anne coming in to sort of like square the perfect like traditional family isn't quite that, because like Anne has her own weird hangups, like with not letting like Seberg like see her young boyfriend. And it's just like, again, it's not like she's coming in to be like, oh, a lovely inviting mother. Like, yeah. There are a lot of edges there.
Well, I think it's also the comment on the nuclear family there is that, like, if you don't have it at the start, especially if you're living this bourgeoisie lifestyle that leads to pondering and ennui, like, if you don't have a strong family, you're going to just be fucked, and there's no real mending for it. Like, it's not really mentioned even what happened to the mother. You can kind of assume the mother killed herself. That's my reading into it, at least. Jean Seberg's mother, that is. Because, toward the end, and, to skip ahead toward the end, Anne ends up in a fatal car crash, and there's a speculation that it could be suicide, but there was no note written. And Jean Seberg says the line, "My father never even mentions the word suicide, especially around me, or not even around me." And I feel like that kind of deepens it and calls back to a possibility of this being a repeated thing, because at the end of the movie, they say, all right, well, this time we're going to go to Italy for a change of pace, but they're basically just back at it. And he's like, yeah, I'll let you know by the end of the week if I invite this other young broad. And so it feels like this is a repetitive thing, and there's no fixing a completely damaged nuclear family, especially when they don't even have to worry about money. Like, they can just live a vacation life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of what you're saying of like JT with like the Deborah Kerr character, she traditionally would be kind of like, kind of like whip them into shape, like the power of, the nuclear family, a traditional, mom, dad, daughter relationship, that, the goodness of that would tie everything together. But as we see when she first arrives, when she's told that there's this other younger lady that's staying there, it seems like she's going to storm off. But then, moments later, when they're discussing her very publicly, almost in front of where she, in front of the room and where she's staying, she's like, no, I'm here and I'm fine with it. And it just shows that the kind of the mutual agreement between this father and daughter is, just so much stronger than any sort of force that's going to, come in and interrupt that. Because I don't know, that's kind of just like you're saying, it's their mutual agreement that they're, doing this, that they're living this way. And, that's, yeah, just the fact that overcomes, definitely gives the sadness and kind of the doom laden feel that we feel in these black and white scenes later. It really kind of hammers it home.
Yeah, and I love when you cut to the black and white stuff, like, 20, 30 minutes into the movie. You cut back to Jean Seberg in the present day, on a date with one guy and just kind of dropping him mid-date to dance with another guy and then going back to him and then just leaving them to fight and go to the bathroom, which feels like a Hollywoodized, like a very... elevated version, or not elevated, but heightened version of something that from like an Antonioni movie or something like that.
Yeah.
Predating Antonioni's 60s movies at least. But, he was making Les Amiches at this point and Il Grido. So there's a possibility that Preminger saw some 50s Antonioni going into this. But regardless, I think that his approach to alienation visually is very different. Preminger here is all about the scope framing and using it to create alienation and intimacy, one shot after the next almost, whether characters are grouped together or shot in singles with these huge wide spaces, dead spaces often on the left and right side of them, often is, based on the intention and the tone and the emotions of the scene. And I think Preminger is a key director of the classical Hollywood style, with this being one of the best examples in that, like, sure, there's beauty in the frame. The black and white stuff has a great contrast. The color stuff, you're at one of the most beautiful locations in the world. How does it not look great? But his formal tendencies have a sly thing where it's like, yeah, he's gonna favor long takes, and if you're looking for the cut, you'll notice that he's a long take kind of guy. But he's a very subtle stylist, and I think that it's only when you're really paying attention and trying to, do a mental shot list while you're watching one of his movies that you realize how unconventional his form is, and the way that he stages, and the way that he stages in order to shoot economically with a low amount of takes, bringing him back to his theatrical roots.
I really love that you bring up staging, because there's one big moment that happens that I feel like is staged in a very unconventional way for something that is like doing like melodrama in a very traditional sense, that I feel like plays with sort of the ennui and remove and alienation. There is there's this whole big convoluted plot that happens where Seberg and the Elsie.
Oh yeah, Elsie. Yeah.
Elsie are going to do this like whole sort of like they do a big plot to get Niven back with Elsie and to dump Kerr, but the reveal of the information there that Niven is back with Elsie, I feel like is extremely powerful to me, because you just like you see Seberg watching Kerr and we don't see any of Niven and Elsie. You just hear it, and I feel like their absence in the frame is very much felt. And I feel like that's if you're doing it like, again, like, not to say that, like, obviously Preminger, master of like classical style, but I feel like you think in your mind of like a Hollywood way to shoot this. You're getting reactions. Like, this is a big reveal moment, and here it's played like very intimately with like observing a character, observing another, and it just like makes it feel like a little bit smaller, but like more like intimately damning.
Yeah, I feel like the layers of voyeurism in that scene are so fascinating, you know, because as you said, Jean Seberg, she sets up this plot so that Deborah Kerr will walk in on David Niven hooking up with his young girl again after, you know, saying that he was going to marry her. And we get all these voyeuristic POV shots, and then finally, the way it's shown, the actual thing, we just hear the dirty talk, as it were. And we're doing like almost a shot reverse shot, but each thing you're cutting between is just like Kerr and Seberg's reactions to what they're watching. And so it's like you have A, B, and C making a triangle, and you take out B or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a very unconventional way to stage this, and I think it's brilliant.
That scene really drives home kind of like the great use of this, you know, vacation setting, this, you know, this vast property that they're you know, vacationing on, and kind of, you know, it's a very simple but kind of just classic concept of kind of like, you know, the overwhelming beauty of a location matched with like the vapidness and, you know, of these characters. And then that scene where, you know, Niven has snuck off, you know, in the trees somewhere near the beach, and he's talking, you know, dirty to, you know, his young mistress, and Kerr's listening and Seberg's listening, and you really, like, I don't know, like it takes a beautiful piece of property and makes it kind of like this weird labyrinth where people are hiding off and doing bad things. You know, it kind of I don't know, it takes something beautiful and reveals the ugliness of it.
Absolutely. And, you know, that revelation leads to the Deborah Kerr character and just driving off in a huff. And then once again, off screen, she dies in a car wreck. All we see is like smoke billowing up from off of a cliff. And, you know, the two main surviving characters approaching the damage and watching the car get dredged up. And it's shocking in the way that if you've seen Preminger's Angel Face, I believe, the Robert Mitchum one, there's also a very shocking car wreck in that one that's shown on screen. And I feel like that might be the difference, the maturity difference, you know, whether he's in his more black and white, you know, punchy noir mode, or if he's in more of his mature dramatic mode where he's making choices like this. And I love him in noir mode too. Angel Face is one of my very favorite Premingers, but it is like him trying to elevate a noir, where this really feels like one of his dramatic productions.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think across the board throughout his career, he's a spectacular filmmaker, and I feel like deriving you of conventional images that you would see in these types of scenes makes it really powerful. I mean, again, I'm blanking on what exactly Niven says to his younger mistress, but it's like really fucking damn cool.
Says,
it's like
he says like he's like, oh yeah, I said I'd marry her. That's what you got to say to girls like that. You know, you got to say I'll marry you. You know.
And it's funny because he really does not change at all. Right after that, they agree to write her a letter before they find out she dies in a car wreck. And he's like, so I'll say something along the lines of, you say silly things to a silly girl. Yeah. And it's like he just literally reversed it and was like, oh, I just had to say it to her to, you know, fuck her, I guess.
It just really heightens like the casual cruelty of all that for me.
Yeah.
And it's just, so miserable.
Yeah, especially when they're writing that letter before the phone call comes in that alerts them there's been a fatal wreck around the corner from their property. That feels like the most evil scene in the whole movie. Like, you know, especially how this being a rewatch for me, knowing that Anne just drove off a cliff and they're just like very gleefully joking around about how they're going to phrase the apology and how she'll easily come back into their life and everything like that is just, oof. Pure evil. And that's what this film's all about, I think. It's just like, it's much edgier than what I would compare it to in the European art house films of the 60s in terms of those ennui breeding, immorality type movies. This one has the punch of it and the bombast and the bravura of a Hollywood movie. And that's why it's so great to me, is that it rides the line between the European modernist thought-provoking films and the very thought-provoking Hollywood bombastic melodramas of the 50s. And yeah, so he finds a very sweet spot there, and I'm going 4 bullets on this one. I think both times I've been teetering on bumping it up a little, but I'm going to stay strong with 4 bullets here. I think it's great. Not one of Preminger's very most complete great films, but I think that is part of, talking about a assembly line auteur. Sometimes, a guy like me who is very into the generic films, the genre films of the 1940s and 50s, is maybe going to gravitate more toward a Daisy Kenyon or a Angel Face than this, even if I can absolutely say that this is the more groundbreaking film in film history.
Yeah, I'm going to go 4 bullets for this one as well. It's a great film. We got to bring the big boy back. I would love to talk about more Preminger, especially because now I feel like this is maybe 10th or so film of his that I've seen. I feel like at this point in going through a director's filmography, no matter how quick or slow, I feel like you get all the pieces coming together. And this very much so reminded me of, there's another later Preminger that is a UK production that's Bunny Lake is Missing. That also has a weird psychoanalytic relationship. That one's more of a brother-sister thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's you can see what Preminger's working with now at this point, and I don't know. I think he's a spectacular filmmaker, and it would be a great service of us to, I don't know, be on that bandwagon for a little bit.
All right, Malcolm, what about you? A score and any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 4.5 bullets. Just kind of like what you were saying, Eddie, because it really does kind of feel like this perfect meld of European art house tendencies to come, not even well established yet, but to come, and then kind of the Hollywood sensibilities that Preminger developed over these years. And yeah, I don't know. It feels like a remix of one of those Romare vacation movies. You know what I mean? With a little bit of Preminger thrown into it. And yeah, that is a good point, JT, about he's into the I can't remember in Bunny Lake if it goes full incest, but he's into the quasi incestual relationships. Preminger's it's good to hang out with your family, but don't be hanging out with them too much. You know what I mean? You don't need to tell them. You don't need to be telling them everything. You know what I mean? Family's good. We all love our family. Maybe we don't, but it's,
maybe don't kiss your dad on the mouth.
Don't kiss your dad.
I mean,
that's
it's
the message.
It's the rebel without a cause thing, though. Clearly, he's thinking about how it's weird that more conservative families, the kids are still kissing their daddies on the mouth. A little weird, Let's just say in that situation, I'm working out on the beach. I'm all sweaty. My daughter comes up to me dressed like that, starts kissing me on the mouth. Let's just say she's living with her mom tomorrow.
Yeah,
and if my theory about where the mom is in this movie stands true, I don't care.
Did you see a map out for your life in this movie, Eddie? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I did not. We will be right back on Extended Clip.
So here I am, surrounded by my wall of memory. I try to stop remembering, but I can't. And so often I wonder, when he's alone, is he remembering too? I hope not.
My smile is void of laughter. My kiss has no caress. I'm faithful to my lover, my bittersweet Tristesse.
Oh, she'll stay.
How can you be so sure?
I know women. I know how to make them like it.
Oh, you want her to stay?
Yes. Yes, I want her to stay. It's an amazingly good figure.
Yeah, I know. You got to fix that too.
The only show that's coming back because of this is Real Time by Bill Maher. That's the only
Look, buddy, that's all. That's all we need.
You know, it's funny. My parents, they like Real Time. You know what I mean? Which is, it's normal. But I keep telling them, like, get into Club Random. Like, you gotta. I'm like, Real Time.
Oh my god,
Real Time sucks. Like, you gotta.
Yeah,
watch
Real Time
Club.
is the weak shit. You gotta dive. Are you a real Bill fan? Check out. Have you gotten them to watch any Club Random episodes?
I showed them a clip, and they're just they didn't like the vibe. You know, it's a dingy, dirty.
You gotta get.
kind of
You
vibe.
pick what was the guest? You gotta pick a fan. Who's someone your family is gonna really love.
I definitely was trying to scare him a little bit. I definitely showed him the Richard Dreyfuss one, and that one's scary. That one's like literally like two corpses like rattling around like for an hour. Like that one's a legit like kind of scary watch. Like the lighting's like a little bit dark. I don't know what's going on with that one. Then speaking of incest, Richard Dreyfuss said he wanted to fuck his sister, and he's like drunk as hell. It's like, he said that on Club Random. He was like, I had fantasy, like I would masturbate to like my sister or something.
Jesus
I didn't show
Christ.
them that part, of course. But like,
yeah.
No blinker?
I'm good, thanks.
Oh, okay. Malcolm calling me out for not hitting blinkers.
No,
on the pod?
blinkers are tough. Blinkers are tough. We don't need you to
Come on,
decimate
Malcolm.
your
I'm not
voice.
hitting blinkers on the pod. We got a job to do here.
It's just like internet encouraging. Like if I were watching a live stream and I saw someone hitting a pen, I would want to tell them like hit a blink. But this isn't even this is just a private live stream.
Yeah, private.
From you
Yeah,
guys to
exactly.
Private cam show.
Yeah, no, I love the weekly cam show we get from you.
True, I'm on my bed too. It's
Yeah,
sensual.
no, exactly. You look, again, as you've said before, it looks like you're getting sucked off.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's still the funniest thing in the world for me. Like someone being happy while they're getting it. Like that just makes me laugh every time. Being like
doing the
"Oh,
Ferris
yeah."
Bueller pose. I did. I was very tempted, when I first met him, to offer Whit Stillman a blinker off the Benjamin, but unfortunately, couldn't get there. Couldn't quite get there with him.
If we had like if we were like full-fledged Howard Stern mode, like we had a full studio, it would have been great to hit Stillman with some antics. You know what I mean?
Oh
like,
yeah.
Nothing harsh, but just some very, very light antics.
ribbing.
Light, yeah, light stuff.
Like the way they have the Sibian, it would be funny if the extended clip studio, you have to just like take a ridiculous bong rip, like just like we're capping it with wax, we're fucking going off on you, and we're making fun of you if you can't clear that shit.
Yeah,
like
like
it's
a hot ones with bong.
Yeah,
right?
and like you have to clear it too. Like if you start having a coughing fit and you're like, all right, dude, I'm good. It's like, no, we're staring at you until you clear that shit.
We should make it like 2016 weed dispensary vibes. We should just have an attractive lady with like a dab rig.
Doing the dominatrix dabber.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
people
yeah.
feel like socially pressured to hit the dab rig, or else the lady would be like,
The hot chick will be upset with you.
yeah, she'll be like, that's kind of, yeah.
It's extended clip. It's Malcolm in the middle. Malcolm, you chiefing bud, you rolling up, you hitting blinkers.
I've been keeping it clean, keeping it to just pen usage lately. Just trying to get, no need for the frills or anything like that. And I have to say, my movie watching has probably hit, besides what we're doing for the podcast, has probably hit the gutter, as I've been beckoned and called back to the multiplex. I can't stop going to this goddamn multiplex and buying $12 matinee tickets. I can't stop doing it because...
Oh, so you're not on the A list?
No. Well, not the... Where I'm at right now, it's not there's not really an AMC for like an hour. So yeah, no. Cinelux is the domineering theater chain around here. And I saw what might have been my worst, maybe the worst thing I've seen all year. And a movie that I should be reprimanded for even watching, The Nun 2. I went to go see The Nun, The Nun 2, which is hilarious because, it's so fucking boring. It's just a fucking boring movie about some like Catholic school, like some nun boarding school scenario, and the church is haunted basically, and they got to exorcise the demon. And it seems like there's like lore from like The Nun 1. I think that's what they originally...
The Jean Colette Serra? Is that?
No, I don't think...
Or am I thinking of The Orphan?
You're thinking of The Orphan. Orphan 2 would have been... I think they did make an Orphan 2. I'll have to check that out. I think it's called Orphan First Kill or something like that. But yeah,
Orphans.
That would have been sick. But yeah,
that would have been good. More movies got to do that.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. The plural title for a sequel, that's pretty sick. Much better.
I'm pro pluralization.
Much better than The Nun 2, which is the first one called The Nun 1. You know? I don't know why The Nun 1. So in The Nun 1, I think there's a lot of shit that it's just a fucking very bad movie. I thought Blumhouse did it. Apparently, it was...
I saw you tweet.
I saw Malcolm tweet post. At Jason Blum how much he hated this movie.
It's like, I don't know if you made this movie or what, but The Nun 2 sucked.
I did contact...
I thought you should know.
I did contact Jason Blum because he can't... First of all, you can't possibly know everything that's going on in this business. I know, people like to claim they're on top of shit, but... There's probably shit that seeps through the cracks, and I just contacted him. I didn't know if it was his movie or not, saying Nun 2 was not quality. Don't know if it's your movie or not, but just thought you should know. And to be honest, if it's not his movie, that should reach him with good news, because he's like, okay, Nun 2 fucking sucked. The word on the street, Nun 2 didn't get the job done. I could come in, swoop in with my movie. My movie's going to at least be better than that. And that's the bar that I have to clear.
Well, also, the real good news for him is I still got Malcolm.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, true. True.
He's like, I didn't make The Nun 2. I still got Malcolm on my side.
Yeah. No, I like Jason Blum. Yeah.
Well, now that you know he didn't make Nun 2, you guys are back to being homies.
More. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I mean... If a couple bad movies, he's on the shit list, and he probably, to be honest, he probably deserves to be there now. But I don't know. He tweeted something like, "I got a positive feeling." I don't know. I want more movie studio producers to have a public face. I feel like they're all hiding nowadays due to labor reasons or whatever. Blum's out there being like, "I just took a run." You know what I mean? Here's a picture of my dog. You know what I mean? It's better than nothing.
Yeah. We got to get who's the lady that was running all the Disney productions? Catherine something.
I don't know.
Oh man, I don't know. Yeah, Kathleen
Kennedy.
Yeah.
No,
we got to get Kathleen Kennedy doing the thing, like posting like DJ Khaled, posting a picture of her on the phone where it's like just talk to AMC. They're putting in the new servers. We're all good to go for the release of Marvel 27.
And it could be real. Like that's the thing. I don't know. Maybe that actually goes down. Like so. Yeah, we want more posts. We want more public posts.
I think that's what everyone's clamoring for, is for more directors to be online. Is that directors and producers should just like go online all the time and speak their feelings on stuff. I think that's what the public wants.
I want everyone to reveal themselves. You know, that's all that I ask. You know what I mean? I feel like people are hiding. Reveal yourself. That's all I'm asking.
Unmask yourself. Take off the mask.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It's 2023, guys. Take off the mask. JT, you watch anything good this week?
Kind of. I mean, one thing I'm saving for if we're gonna do a Malcolm in the Middle, maybe later. I'll talk about this one, but
later we're doing it now.
I have a little bit of a rant in me for something. Okay. It's for a movie I also pretty much I generally liked. I wasn't really paying much attention to it, but like I watched The Quick and the Dead on some I don't know, not like it's like a Tubi, Freevee, some type of Fubu. Yeah, I think it was.
I think it was Fubu.
I believe it was Fubu, but on some free TV like cable ass bullshit. Nico threw on The Quick and the Dead, and I had missed like the first 10 minutes. And I was like, you know what? I'll check it out. Sharon Stone, a Western, Gene Hackman. These are all things that like I don't know. I'm excited about. Yeah. I really like to see.
The building blocks are there.
But I don't know. I kind of have a bone to pick with Sam Raimi in general because
I know why.
Why?
Because he voted for freaking Trump.
No, that's the one good thing he has going for him. That like we completely align. Like that's like leave that man alone. But fucking like when the whatever bullshit Doctor Strange movie he did came out, there were like tons of people online coming out of the woodworks being like, well, no, wait, this might actually be a good movie. It's directed by Sam Raimi. And it's just like, what is like, there's a weird, I feel like, niche of like people who mostly just watch like American movies, not even like all that old American movies, that like think Sam Raimi is a relatively, I don't know, a decent enough director where that would mean anything. And I like the Evil Dead movies. I think the first one is the best because I don't know, I like the third a little bit more than the second in terms of like the goofy comedy stuff, but the first one is a really fun, like creepy, intense genre film. And I don't know, my problem with Sam Raimi in general is he's all flash in the pan. He's an all style kind of guy. Like he's like, but then when you break down his fundamentals, like what are you really playing with? It really disappoints me. And just like
an early hip hop style director, you might say.
Exactly. I mean, I don't think I ever will revisit the Spider-Man movies. I liked them a lot as a kid. Probably better than whatever contemporary Marvel slop.
Yeah, of course.
But it's just like, and I mean, I'm sure like the odds and ends, like whatever like studio fare he's done in like the 90s. But it's just like, why would you care about this man at all? Like, it's just like, I don't know, middling director who has like a little bit of like, because I watched his Liam Neeson like 30s superhero movie Darkman a while ago as well, and that was like fine enough, but it's just like,
I remember you were saying like it was kind of the unfilled potential thing in that movie, right? Like it should have been better.
Yeah, no, and I feel that with like a lot of, I mean, The Quick and the Dead, which I was like kind of half in and out of like watching, but there were points where it was just like, especially in something like, I'm gonna be a little on edge watching a Western where it's just like, you got to know your history, you got to play it right, and there are just too many things that, I mean, I know there's like obviously Western revisionism, there's a lot more style that gets introduced into the genre there, But I don't know. It's just Sam Raimi's hip hop style doesn't exactly work all that well.
You don't like the thing that I've seen on Twitter from that movie during a duel where the camera goes like a Dutch angle and like shoots like in the POV at the bullet really fast? That's the only thing I know about that movie is the one shot that's like that.
There's another moment like that where there's like Gene Hackman is the big bad outlaw who's like running the town, and the town is just built off of just like a bunch of duels that happen. And there's this like weird sort of sequence where the camera pans through sort of a bunch of characters with like just a black background and like things floating around. And I feel like this is a thing I've seen in other Raimi movies. And it's just like, what is this nonsense? Like, cut that shit out of here. I don't want that in this. Like, it was just annoying.
A little pushback on the only Sam Raimi fans don't watch anything but American movies thing. I feel like I actually think he kind of has a big international feeling.
Weird.
Like, not feeling, because he has a distinctively American feeling in his movies.
Yeah.
His stuff actually like gets around, especially Evil Dead. I mean, like,
yeah,
that's like a international cult hit, you know. But I just wanted to get that. I feel like there were definitely some angry listeners there forming.
I mean, hey man, I just because I don't like some like slob like Sam Raimi, and it's like I like his movie. Like
I like that you're making me defend Sam Raimi when I am not necessarily a fan of him whatsoever.
It's just like I even this is being said as a man who gave Quick and the Dead 3.5 bullets. Like it's a fun. It was I had a fun time.
It's a positive rating.
But like
you got a bone to pick with the auteur.
Just in general, it's just like I don't understand what like because for me again, Evil Dead series probably, and even like fans of his, I would wager would say that's probably the best thing he's done.
Yeah.
But you're peaking that early, like with your first few movies. Like, come on, buddy. Like, what do we got here?
Yeah, I think that his Spider-Man movies, I'm not gonna take them seriously at this point, at this current juncture. And if it's kind of a reactionary thing to just be like, I don't like superhero movies, so I'm not gonna take his superhero movies seriously, then I'm Lenny Riefenstahl. But and it's not even reactionary to say that. If anything, you're fighting the capitalist system of superhero filmmaking. But I do remember rewatching those, like, at least at a cinephilic age, like at like 19 or 20 or so, and thinking they were at least like substantially better than the contemporary Marvel shit.
Yeah, no.
And that was like when the contemporary Marvel shit, people weren't even sick of it yet. That was like, 2013, 2014 when I rewatched those Spider-Man movies and was like, you know what, these are solid 3-bullet movies, but exactly, I don't have any inclination to go back and take them seriously right now.
It's just like I feel like at the end of the day, probably the ceiling I have for most of his stuff is that like it's fun and fine enough, but I just have to any of the impressionable young minds that might be listening to this, if you're thinking like, oh, well, who's the next like weird little, like, because people like to go in the nooks and crannies, and I suppose like in a way, Raimi, he's in a nook somewhere. Yeah, he's in a cranny. But it's just like find something. There are much more interesting avenues to go down.
The guy knows his way around a cranny.
This is a real deal hot take. If anyone's not, anyone listening that's like a little bit mad, this is what a real hot take is. It's a little controversial. Now, with Raimi, I haven't seen a lot of his stuff. I feel like I saw the first Evil Dead, saw the Spider-Man movies as a kid, and then I think I rewatched the first one for like a class or something. And I remember enjoying it. But I definitely...
Film schools love teaching superhero movies.
Oh, yeah. Especially,
So weird.
It's dark stuff. It really is. But
my final class that I took in undergrad, I remember doing a plot, like a beat sheet, essentially, for Iron Man. Or not Iron Man, sorry, Ant-Man.
Oh,
and I was like, at least they chose the one by my buddy Peyton Reed and my buddy Paul Rudd. We got our old buddies there.
And if you're gonna go in weird like American nooks and crannies, go Peyton Reed instead.
Well,
we're his flowers.
Would say that Peyton Reed is a very good filmmaker. I think that they get at, because the one thing I was going to say in defense of Raimi, and Malcolm, I'm going to get right back to you. Sorry to cut in here. Is that like clearly he's like a guy who likes the Three Stooges as much as he likes gore. And so I think that is really the one selling point, is him as a guy who's making comedies disguised as horror movies.
Yeah.
Or as all genre movies, essentially. And it's basically a mileage may vary situation. Like first Evil Dead, I think, is actually very funny because of how raw it is. Second Evil Dead, I don't find as funny because it's a little too clean cut for me. And the humor seems a lot more intentional. I love how raw the first Evil Dead is. The humor almost seems accidental, but clearly he's getting at some Three Stooges shit the whole time. Malcolm, what were you going to say about Raimi here?
Keep it quick. It does seem like, and I haven't seen the movies. I haven't put in the work, so I can't. Maybe I'll come around. Maybe 5 years down the line, he'll be singing his praises. But at this point, it seems like sometimes he'll get some juice from like the Evil Dead stuff, and like people will talk about him in the same conversation as they'll talk about like John Carpenter, and obviously like we know, they're in separate leagues there. And to speak on like people being like, oh, he's directing Ant-Man and Doctor Strange 5, you know what I mean? Maybe this will be a good movie. It's like, yeah, maybe if it was like 1997 when he was like a still active working director. But this guy had not made a movie in like years, you know what I mean? And maybe it's because the industry, wasn't, too nice to him. Maybe that's the reason. But I don't know. In terms of, people going oddity hunting, which that's a new thing now. People going oddity hunting, looking for the strange movies that are actually good. I don't know. It seems like that people overhyped it. They bought way too much stock in it, and I haven't seen it, but it didn't seem like anyone said it was a good movie. So that's the book on that.
We used to hunt for large game, and now we hunt for movies that didn't get very good reviews. What a shame. What a shame.
Eddie.
I watched a few movies this week. Malcolm, yes?
Oh, I was just about to...
is that what you were going to ask me?
Did you see anything this week that you got some thoughts on?
Yeah, I did. I watched Ghost World 2 nights ago. This is like a classic I saw it too late movie. Something that I also feel about like Donnie Darko, but I think what distinguishes Ghost World from Donnie Darko, or I guess what distinguishes Donnie Darko from Ghost World, is the essential feeling of time and place that comes with Donnie Darko. The impeccable sense of American history and specificity in Donnie Darko versus the kind of mix between an anytown suburb and very strictly Los Angeles that Ghost World presents. And Ghost World is an interesting movie. It's a coming-of-age movie. It's a very edgy movie by our buddy Terry Zwigoff, who directed Crumb, and you clearly see that it's like, oh, that's the guy who directed Crumb, which is a documentary, of course, but you see some R. Crumb stuff in the movie visually. You hear some dialogue that's reminiscent of conversations about art. Zwigoff even says he uses a long take for documentary purposes rather than more of a showy long take purpose. But frankly, I just don't really think this came together all that well for me. It's one that if I saw it when I was 15, it would have, I would have had the biggest crush imaginable on both characters. And, it would have been my favorite movie for like 5 weeks, sophomore year of high school. I said would have, no, Malcolm. I know. We're doing we're purely don't make this weird.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say a thing.
Yeah.
There was no audio of me showing any doubt, so I don't know what made you think that.
Video viewers will see.
He's just talking about Steve Buscemi. It's okay.
Yeah. No, but it's funny. Steve Buscemi's character at this, it's like, oh, now it's like, I guess I'm closer to him than the two main girls. And this movie feels pretty rough on a guy like that. Not Buscemi particularly, but because obviously the character gets some redemption in this, and it's more about the cynicism of the two girls at the core. But I don't know. It's a very I don't even want to say it's a full-fledged cynical movie, but it kind of gave me a feeling about the world that I don't love, especially coming from the guy who did Crumb. It's so weird. It's like he almost is assuming that any guy who likes to collect art is like Crumb's brother, who kept drawing smaller and smaller until he died or whatever.
I feel like I don't know, are either of you like Bad Santa heads?
I've seen
I
it.
like.
I
want
to see Bad Santa again. Only a childhood memory. Of
I feel
one.
like that was something where when I saw it as a child, it like terrified me because of the cynicism of it. But like revisiting that like a few years ago, I feel like it addresses like I feel like obviously there's an edge to it, and like there's a lot of comedy coming from Billy Bob's character and the fat kid that he befriends, but there's much more heart there, and like likability, like not likability, but like there's more of a redemption and like understanding of the characters that I feel like is really your main problem with it. There's like, why would you have such a cynical perspective? Like, if you feel this way, why would you have such a cynical perspective on that character?
And I'm open to that too. I just like also wish it was more funny and dramatically compelling. Like, it also just like lays flat for a lot of the runtime, in my opinion. And there's a lot of jokes that just don't really hit, because I did get a few laughs out of it. You know, they were kind of few and far between. Yeah. And it is a comedy, a dark comedy, black comedy. Everybody loves black comedy. Ghost World and Big Mama's House. You know where that was going right away.
Juice World. Juice World.
Juice World.
R.I.P. Juice
All
World.
right, we're done on extended clip. We're done. This episode is done. Goodbye. We'll see you on the Patreon next time to talk about The Fly by David Cronenberg to start the month of horror. All right, see ya.